Thank you, Chair Finley, again for doing this. Well, thank you everyone for attending the second meeting for the ANC 3C Transportation Committee. I think we had a really productive meeting last time. And so I think the goal of today's meeting is we will continue the discussion from last time, which one of the discussion points was we were going to put together and discuss a draft for a resolution regarding removing rush hour restrictions on parking on Connecticut Avenue Northwest, and also asking for some more pickup drop-off zones as well as loading zones along the business district in Connecticut Avenue. So so that's on the agenda, and then there's some follow-up items that were there for the commissioners to look at, and I believe we have some follow-up that we can report back to the community. And then after that, there's some community issues that were brought up that I also put on the latest updated agenda that were sent out. So I think we can then go to those issues if that works with everyone.
If it's not too much trouble, is the agenda posted online anywhere?
Yes, let me paste it. So the agenda, and I will be updating this, and this also includes the last meeting's agenda, is on this Google link. So everyone is welcome to click on this. And I will also, once I start talking about the resolution, I will also share my screen as well. So I think the only commissioners present are Commissioner Finley, Commissioner Paget, and myself. Wonderful. All right, so now that everyone has a link to the agenda and everyone sees the agenda, so I would say, since there's no other additional items, I think the most important thing for us is to start looking at the resolution, getting feedback from everyone who's here, and then getting it to a point where we can then send an updated version out and hopefully vote at our Monday meeting. All right, so
sorry to interrupt. Does anybody have any questions about how to see the link? It's in the chat section. So chat is pretty much at the bottom center of the menu at the bottom of the screen.
And I just resent it because I just saw Jolene just joined. So this particular resolution, the particular draft of the resolution, then I'm now about to share my screen. The point of this resolution is, and you can get to this draft as well from the link that I've from the link to the agenda. It is hyperlinked to be able to get to this draft for anyone who wants to look at the draft. So the idea behind this resolution is that we've heard sort of lots of complaints from the businesses, one from the business side, as well as residents about sort of parking along Connecticut Avenue, specifically once they got rid of the reversible lanes and then rush hour parking was implemented again along Connecticut Avenue. For those of you that don't know, it used to be when we were in the, still are in some ways in the COVID emergency, there was no reversible lanes and you could park both sides on Connecticut Avenue 24 hours a day. And then DDOT decided to not bring the reversible lanes back, which is great. It's important for the safety of our community, but they did reinstate no parking during rush hour. And that has had an impact for the people who need to drive to be able to get to the businesses, as well as the businesses, especially during rush hour. That includes sort of restaurants as well as dry cleaners. So part of this that, just so everyone knows, in the discussions that were happening with commissioners, once I sent them a draft, part of the talk was, well, in the long term, there will be a concept C, or there will be a particular concept presented by DDOT as an outcome of the reversible lane study. And so maybe we should just wait for that before we sort of jump into any immediate term. And I think my personal, what I wrote back, and I think other commissioners, I'll welcome you to have an opinion on this too, and other committee members. I think that there's stuff we can do in the immediate term for these issues that can really help and set everything up. So that's kind of the background on this. And I kind of want to pause for a second, see if any commissioners have any questions or any comments, and then we can go to the committee. Yeah.
Do we get an update from DDOT on when they might be making that decision announcement? Anything regarding that study?
This is where I love that Christian is here. Christian, do you have any updates on when the results of the study might come out?
Thank you, Commissioner. No, our leadership is still under review of deciding when that's going to happen. I have not heard any decision being made, but as soon as I find out, I'll let you know.
And there's no timeline that we're working towards?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am. Sorry.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't have any questions, Commissioner Siddiqui.
Okay. I'll also pause since we have community members here. Does anyone from the community have any questions or comments that they'd like to make at this point before we get into the nitty-gritty of the resolution? I see Bob with his real hand up, not a virtual hand. Bob, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, just sort of like maybe level setting what's happening up there now, and sort of the shorter term time frame of what's to be expected this fall. I mean, the PEPCO work is going on, and I don't know if I know Cassandra had an update for us last night on the Main Street meeting, but maybe an update on that. It seems like the breadth of the PEPCO work is occupying pretty much the entire service lane right now. And it is going to, I think, take until into November to complete all the work that they're doing, moving the manholes. And the project of drainage and streetscape is supposed to start in October. So, I mean, is it safe to say that we are effectively have already started construction and will be in a state of construction now until the end of the streetscape and drainage project? I guess that's my question. And if we can just get some sort of update on those timings that I mentioned seem accurate.
Thank you. Cassandra or Christian, I would say if either of you have any comments, because I think that for what Bob said is the length of is the totality of what I know, but I don't know if Cassandra or Christian, you have any additional ones, or one of the commissioners know anything more.
Yeah, I can start off. Yeah, we have verification that you're right, Bob, on October 15th, I believe is the date that construction will start with that service lane. We do not have a contractor in yet to that is still waiting. And I have no timeline for that as well. DDOT has had histories of giving people dates and that end up changing. And the last thing I want to do is provide you with the wrong timeline. So until we get a contractor and a manager in session, we'll be able to assess, where the roles will be on that. But there is progress that's going to start next month on that project. And you are correct. That will be the continuation of that project as well.
So just to be clear, Christian, when you say that the construction in the service lane will begin October 15th, is that separate from what PEPCO is doing now? Or is that the PEPCO subcontractor, is that separate from that? Is the PEPCO sorry, it's been a very long day. The PEPCO subcontractor told me this morning that they're going to be in that service lane until the end of November. So is it something else that's happening October 15th, or is this just all one big happy construction family project?
To my knowledge, I have no information on that other subcontractor at the moment. I did reach out to Yvonne Thelwell, who was our IPMD engineer for that section of the corridor. Once I get validation of what that work is, I'll let you know. To my knowledge, it seems like a separate construction work, but I'll provide more information once I get it.
They seem to think they're doing stuff for DDOT. So anyway, thank you, Christian.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything else to add or any other information?
My point of raising that question is in the context of this resolution. I know there's been talk about, what's going on with the service lane. And I think from the pieces of information that are coming in and what's actually happening there now and the schedule of what's actually happening there now, it seems like the service lane being closed is going to be closed throughout the remainder of the construction period, which could last up to 18 months or however long it's going to be. So what we're focused on in the resolution really is what can we do with Connecticut Avenue now? And that's, and with side streets, Connecticut Avenue, whatever. I just wanted to bring that context in that, there's no other options but to try and manage what we have here on Connecticut Avenue.
Yeah, this is absolutely, Bob. So this is like a more holistic look based on discussions we had last time on all the stuff that we can do, and we hope that we can do this because again, like with the service lane closed, but also just in general the problems we're facing on Connecticut Avenue, like these are all options to explore and all things that I think we have wide agreement on that could be implemented. Thank you.
Commissioner Siddiqui, I do want to thank you for coming up with options that really everybody from the businesses to the residents have come behind to support.
Great. Okay, so I think if that's okay, then we will continue with this. And if anyone has any questions as we're continuing, please let me know. Again, the first three clauses really just describe the context, just reiterate our ANC support of concept C from the DDOT reversible lane study. So the idea behind these clauses is just to make sure that anything we say here is not meant to contradict our earlier resolution of what we wanted to do, what we wanted to see happen on Connecticut Avenue. And then the next resolutions, the next sort of clauses sort of focus on what the context is now. So before COVID-19 traffic restrictions during morning rush hour, there were 2 lanes of traffic going north on Connecticut Avenue. And during evening rush hour, there were 2 lanes of traffic going south on Connecticut Avenue. So even in pre-COVID times, 2 lanes going against the direction of rush hour traffic were enough to handle the traffic on Connecticut Avenue. And that was pre-COVID times. And now what has happened is there's an extra lane on Connecticut Avenue that is being used on rush hour, going against rush hour traffic direction. And that was really the idea behind this resolution. One of the ideas behind sort of thinking about the rush hour parking restrictions is there's 2 options. One is really the one that I think this resolution wants to push for is restore that rush hour parking on both sides. But since Christian, you're here, and since you're gonna sort of hear some of the context, like at least one side makes sense, even if we go back to existing sort of having 2 traffic lanes. So extra traffic is not a reason not to have the restrictions removed. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a question in the chat, and I think I have the same one as well, is that referencing the entire length of Connecticut Avenue with those 2 lanes in each direction, or was it just only meant to reference Macomb to Porter?
So that's a good question. I think the ANC has particular jurisdiction, right, over certain parts of Connecticut. I think the rush hour parking restrictions, it would be great if they're there for the businesses, but in the first draft, I really kept it vague so that you can park on both sides of Connecticut Avenue. Of course, that includes Connecticut Avenue that we don't even beyond ANC 3C. So how do other commissioners feel? Like Commissioner Pagas, how do you feel about that? Should we be restricting this to parking just along in our business district?
I don't have strong feelings one way or another. I think if you want like quicker action and focus, we focus it to just that strip rather than muddy water with, over scoping. I don't know.
I'm taking another gander at it. So, if we are going to extend beyond sort of the downtown business district of Cleveland Park and the resolves, which we don't, we would want to talk about, zoo loading and unloading and have a much more comprehensive resolution, I think. But I think this covers, judging from the resolve clauses, and Commissioner Siddiqui, could you, okay, you scroll down them, thank you. We've got the reiteration of support for concept C, but we also have the very specific Cleveland Park Business District aspect of it. So I think that it does only speak it speaks primarily to Cleveland Park, though there is that first resolve clause, which we might want to consider amending.
My worry is that that if we don't ask for this, then just having parking restrictions, I wonder if that goes with DDOT's sort of, the way they set up Connecticut Avenue and stuff. Is there some way for us to say at least for this, and then, or something like that?
I think just say within 3C.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And yeah, and then we're doing that. Now we've got to talk about zoo loading and unloading. So the part of the problem, right, is that DDOT's not going to only allow rush hour parking in the Cleveland Park Business District. That would be kind of absurd to go from 3 to 2 and back to 3 again.
Mm-hmm. And that's, yeah, and I mean, they won't even do it just for ANC 3C, right? Because then as soon as they get to 3F, then they'll have to do the same thing. So,
but it depends on whether you want this to be, very specific, or if you want it to be, broader across 3C. I think broader works, but we'd have to say, something about zoo unloading and
Bob, go ahead.
Thanks. So at the last committee meeting, there was talk about reaching out to 3F and 3G on this issue of, holistically addressing Connecticut Avenue with the rush hour parking. Has there been any conversations there? I mean, I agree. It doesn't make sense to me that, this solution would be just for us. So I think as an ANC, even though it extends beyond your boundaries, as a matter of, district policy, it makes sense to advocate for the treatment of Connecticut Avenue the way it was under the public health emergency, and that extends all the way up and down Connecticut Avenue, right? But it would be good to have the other two ANCs, on board with this. And I think from the traffic studies that they did for the reversible lane, traffic builds as you head south. I think it peaks right around Cathedral Avenue. And so, to the extent, and there is no traffic, because I walk Connecticut Avenue every morning around rush hour. But I guess my point is that northern upstream in the northern direction, it should not, it's even less of a problem than to the extent there is a problem of, ending those 2 lanes during rush hour. So I don't know. I just throw those thoughts out there. It just seems like it should be the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we can ask for that. And to answer your question about has been contact. So I've contacted one commissioner in 3F, one commissioner in 34G, and they both said, sure, but let's look at the resolution first. So, and it's only one commissioner. So it's not that the whole commission has talked about that. But I think once we get through our resolution, we can do it. I guess, Commissioner Finley, you said you were worried about zoo loading and unloading. And I'm sort of going back and thinking about it like, this means that there'll be additional parking, right? And we're basically saying go back to what it was before they removed rush hour parking restrictions before COVID. So it was back to whatever it was a month ago or 2 months ago.
Right. We should put a whereas about the zoo then. The resolution just, it kind of seems like it's both broadly focused on Connecticut Avenue and then very specific about Cleveland Park. Okay. To remove all rush hour parking restrictions on Connecticut. We could also say, and to consider, sorry, I guess switch the Google link. We could also implement loading options and pickup drop-off zones along the Cleveland Park Business District, the Woodley Park Business District, and across around the National Zoo. I mean, we could say that. I don't know if that's over inclusive, and I'm sure we're missing 2 commissioners from Woodley Park this evening.
So
I will say that DDOT is looking into the pickup drop off on Cathedral over on my side. With some concerns that were raised over there.
Sandra, what were you saying?
So it's been a long time, but I used to live opposite the zoo for 4 years, and I don't remember people ever getting dropped off because that's a giant crosswalk right in front of the entrance on Connecticut. I thought everyone went to the back of the zoo for drop off, or like the school buses would park in the crosswalk. But I mean, like I said, it's been a long time since I was there, and maybe things have changed. But is it an issue? Maybe this is a dumb question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, Commissioner Finley, how do you feel about if we kept this resolve to like removing rush hour parking restrictions? Because those are very different than pickup drop off and loading zones, right? Like that's why we didn't put all of them in the same resolution, and keep the pickup drop off loading zones to the business district, because that's where the problem is, right? And then we're not
good. I mean, there is a fair amount of pickup drop off for the zoo right across from, I think 3000 Connecticut is that or 20? What's the address across from the zoo?
3,000. It's 3,000 Connecticut,
Yeah.
but it's the big crosswalk. So I remember police would never let you stop in the crosswalk, and you would have to go back behind the zoo where there is a drop off. They don't have that anymore.
We don't have as much enforcement anymore. Put it that way.
The cops aren't out there. I live across the street from the zoo too. And the other thing is with the advent of Ubers and all of the ride sharing stuff, there becomes
just go right there.
Chaos. And then there's folks that want to like drop their kids off with their strollers and what have yous, equipments, and then they'll go roll around and look for parking in the neighborhood. And that's happening on Cathedral, where like that's the issue, that's not safe there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do is put a date in there of when DDOT was doing the thing we want them to do. And that was, sometime in, I would say, June. They still allowed people to park in rush hour, and there was no reversible lane. So maybe if we put a date in, then we know specifically what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say circa, June 22nd or something, because I believe they ended it on June 30th and began ticketing later that day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's regardless, DDOT is going to have, even if we put it in there or don't put it in there, DDOT is going to have the question about what are they doing on every other part of Connecticut Avenue, because we don't have, we can't say everything, but we can at least make the push and then reach out to other ANCs. So I kind of want to keep it broad, because I feel like the only way it's going to happen is if they do it for all of Connecticut, and they've done it before for all of Connecticut. So there's no reason why they can't go back to what it was like before June 30th and just let people park on both sides.
I'm sold.
Yep, me too.
Okay, wonderful. And I will add certain dates here for that. Cool. Thank you for raising these issues. So rush hour parking, and then so we talked about the traffic lanes. So I think we're okay with the rush hour, sort of getting parking back on both sides on Connecticut. That's what we want. And then there's sort of the next few clauses talk about loading, unloading, pickup drop-off zones for restaurants, dry cleaners, and other businesses. And the last one is pertaining to safety. Is there, so commissioners, before we move on to the resolve clauses, is this like good enough setup, or should we add some more context or anything else? Cassandra, did you want to say something?
So today it was brought to my attention that picking up trash is also an issue because of some of all of these problems we're talking about. I don't know if we even want to touch that, but I just didn't want to not bring it up. So it was particularly cracked eggery, and this was actually separate. It was because of the farmer's market. The garbage truck came and then couldn't get there because of the farmer's market, and they left. So that's sort of a unique issue. But then it got me wondering, are trash trucks having problems? I mean, I know behind the east side, you've got the alley, but the west side, you've got, you don't have access to the buildings in the back. So I don't know what the other situation is for trash on that side. So we could table it or whatever, but.
No, thank you for bringing it up. Let me at least note it here. Okay. Anything else from anyone else about the need for pickup drop-off zones and loading and unloading? I mean, so far we're just setting it up. We haven't gotten to the resolves yet about what we want them to do. So yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Ridley.
I would suggest raising the safety issue up higher and maybe cribbing some language from our concept C resolution, because pedestrian safety is paramount, and we having it kind of feels stuck in at the bottom there, where it's really an important reason why we need to have a better system in our neighborhood.
Right. Okay.
Yes, I agree with that. Today I don't know if you can see, but this is the loading truck down by the 7-Eleven, and they parked just enough in the crosswalk that it's very difficult for a pedestrian, even when they have the signal across the street, to make sure that cars still aren't coming and trying to turn right. And is that wheelchair accessible when you're forcing the delivery trucks into the crosswalks? I don't think so. So, yeah, it is a serious concern.
Okay, I can work on that and get some more language and rephrase this so that it's moved higher. I can do that on this resolution. Anything else? Okay. Cool. So let's get to what we want them to do. So the first one, we call on them to remove all rush hour parking restrictions on Connecticut Avenue, return to conditions on June 15th. I'll fix the date here. So whatever they were once the reversible lanes were done, before they started ticketing everyone, ask them to go back to those. One thought here, commissioners, and this is based on the emails that Commissioner McWood sent, was, should we say over here calls in the immediate term, and just to remove all walk on the signage before the design and implementation of the results from the reversible lane study, something like that. Should we qualify it a little bit?
Do you have is that are you looking for affirmation?
Well, I'm looking for thoughts on a good way to state that, right? Kind of state don't wait for the study to happen. So I kind of added the word immediately. So it's do it right away. Don't be oh, we're waiting for the study to come back. This is something you can do immediately because, and then I guess the same question going back to additional context in the whereas clauses, do we talk about the construction that's going to be happening, which is why we need this, right? So maybe we need a clause in the beginning that talks about that too. So something whereas construction on Connecticut Avenue service lane is expected to last a long time. Can you say that in resolution? Or how about we make it business district is expected
So you should
To last
probably be,
last for 18 months.
It is estimated to, not expected.
Right.
and just for the sake of consistency, I'd change Connecticut Avenue to Cleveland Park.
I see. Yes, sorry.
No,
Not
no,
saying
hey,
that's the right thing.
working draft, right?
Yes. Estimates to last for, how about at least 18 months?
And just to give you a heads up, I talked to the Main Street manager of DuPont. He said his first streetscape project, they gave him an 18-month deadline as well,
Mhm.
or a timeline, and it lasted for 3 years. So, I mean, this is going to be a nightmare if it really goes on that long. But it
Yeah.
all depends on the weather and when they start digging, what do they find? Like when the Pepco subcontractor, who may or may not be working for DDOT, started digging on Ordway on the other side of the barrier by 7-Eleven, they couldn't do any work on the manhole because the electrical wires were leaking energy. So tonight they're like shutting down the electricity to that particular spot. And so who knows what's going to actually happen, what they're going to find when construction starts. So.
And who hits the, 18-inch water main when, and how long that takes to clean up, and yeah.
Yeah.
Bring your surfboard.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think I added this context. I added immediately. I don't think we need to explicitly state. I mean, I think it makes sense that once they come up with the study, they're going to do what they want to do. But we're asking, like, right now, do this right now. Like, get the parking back. Okay. Any other final comments on this clause? Cool. So the second ask is loading options and pickup drop-off zones along the Cleveland Park Business District on Connecticut Avenue Northwest and the side streets of Macomb Street Northwest and Ordway Street Northwest. Yes, Bob, go ahead.
I would just say the side streets. I mean, and I mentioned that because, like, for example, Newark Street on the north side of the library is effectively unsigned. Since they built, there used to be metered spaces there. When the library was put under construction, those went away, and now there's nothing. It's kind of like who knows what's going on there, but it's an opportunity to put pickup and drop off there as well, or library loading, or whatever. So I would just say, and the side streets, and just sort of leave that open.
That actually helps what Commissioner McWood said too, because she didn't want Macomb Street explicitly called out. But I do want to give a chance, because I see Bob from Cleveland Park Ballet is here. And Bob, I don't know if you're comfortable, but talking a little bit about sort of opportunities for parking that might happen, like around Macomb and stuff like that could benefit you and benefit your business. Since you're here, I did want to give you a chance to say something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, right down Macomb on Macomb Street, if you were to add even 1 or 2 spots for pickup and drop off, would be a huge asset for the businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
even if it were limited to 10-minute drop off, but no longer than that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a good implementation. So, but I didn't even think about Newark, and I think that's a good idea. And I like the idea of keeping it side streets. That way, no one commissioner feels like they're targeted, and we're all like, okay, yes, use the side streets. I mean, it would make sense for me that Macomb and Ordway. Sorry, this is not mine, so I shouldn't talk about it. But on my side, it would make perfect sense for the street right in front of my building to have some pickup drop off as well. So. How do other commissioners feel if we just say side streets, and then that way we're at a good place?
Yep. Let's do it.
I'm fine either way.
Okay.
Part of Ordway at Connecticut, the north side of Ordway has the car sharing already, and on your side too, Swally. But yeah, so I don't know if that would be effective, but we don't need to mention it. I mean, DDOT knows it's there.
Yeah. I mean, these two are like the strongest things we're asking for. So we're saying, give us back the parking on Connecticut Avenue during rush hour, and let's get some pickup drop-off zones once that parking is back, as well as let's utilize the side streets that we have, because they're going to be really helpful sort of solving this.
Not having a car and never parking. Is there a time limit on like how long people can park on Connecticut if this parking is restored?
So so this is actually one thing I don't know. I don't know if they were ticketing. So there is a parking meter there. And so you can recharge that, but I don't know if they were ticketing and enforcing that meter during the COVID emergency.
But now that they are ticketing, like, is there
Uh,
another thing that we can add to this, like making more of those spaces short-term parking where
Mhm.
people aren't like just camping there, right?
So I think that's what the pickup drop-offs would be. They would be 15 minutes, I think, right? And from someone who does park a lot, it's usually, you only have a 2-hour limit before a certain time. And then after like usually 6:30 at night, then you can, it's free and unlimited. So I haven't paid to park on Connecticut Avenue in a while, but I would imagine that there's still the same restrictions. So, but I can look next time I'm there on Thursday.
But are pickup drop-off zones metered? Or are they free in the district?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
That we've got Christian on here. I think he
Yeah.
might.
Yeah, Christian.
Christian.
I actually, that is a good question. I don't live in the district. I live in Maryland, so I'm not familiar. But that is something I can inquire about. From my knowledge, I don't imagine so. I'm sure kudos are just there for, if it's pick up and drop off, you just kind of grab and go. I don't think they would pay. They would charge residents to to park there for that short amount of time. So
Right.
yeah.
So I think I've seen 15-minute meters down near the hotels on New Jersey Avenue near Georgetown Mall. But
I
that's
think they're down here by me too.
oh yeah, that makes sense.
The central business district. But yeah, well,
I
So
can see if I
there's-
can find something though. So I can
Maybe
put it in
there- Sounds like we can do both. Paid 15-minute meters and pick up drop off for the delivery people.
Yep.
And counting ride share.
I mean, this would be wonderful for us. I think Commissioner Finley, you had said it at an earlier meeting or at that point, like make us the experiment for this, right? Like if you're trying to decide like if these work or not, like, yeah, put them in our neighborhood and see if we can implement them.
yeah, because there will be feedback for sure.
No.
I mean, for the vast amount of non-restaurant businesses, I mean, 2 hours is excessive. And the shorter you can make that time window for the curbside management,
Mhm.
the more parking you have because the turnover is higher. And so you need fewer spaces to actually satisfy the need.
Yeah, like actually 30, if there are like actually that's a good point. Like if there are like a 30-minute spots or even 45-minute spots, those are really good for the non-restaurant businesses. And that'll really help them as we move through this.
Right.
So should we add something here? Should say implement loading options, variable time limited parking options, and pickup drop-off zones?
Yeah. Because if somebody has wandered into Yes Market and has spent 2 hours there, we should probably look for them.
I either spend 2 minutes in there or maybe a long time in there.
But not 2 hours.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing just reiterates our support for Concept C presented by DDOT. So I think that's where the resolution is. I don't know how, and I guess I want to pause and see if there's any other additional clauses that we think we should add, any additional resolves or anything we should clarify. Of course, we still have a week before voting on this. So, and I still have to get bump this up a little bit more on pedestrian safety. But if there's anything else that we think we can add.
Well, the businesses are really concerned about the loss of revenue, particularly the evening restaurants, when the parking was taken away. So I mean, given that the businesses could potentially suffer with the streetscape project that's coming anyway, it just seems that anything we can do to help keep our, our neighborhoods from that pain and suffering would be great, right?
Yeah. How about I add over here, construction and urban industry estimated to last for 18 months, impacting pedestrian space, parking availability, and business sustainability, or business. Okay.
I think viability.
All of it, right? The viability, the possibility. Like, if we want businesses here, like, yeah.
You know what? If we're gonna go like more all in on like multimodal, like why not also put in something there about considering running the circulator up to the Cleveland Park Metro and stopping at the zoo on both ends of that?
I've been a big supporter of that, but yeah, let's
Because
do it.
that's under DDOT's purview to do it. That way, we're also having the potential of alleviating folks wanting to park there, because we're giving more of those transport options of taking, metro circulator and popping into the zoo.
That second, so initially I was like, oh, I don't know if we can fit it in here, but the second thing you said about parking availability increasing because you have other options. What do you feel, commissioners? Like, do you have yeah, so we added in here?
Yeah.
Clearly support my suggestion.
Yeah, and this is also not, it's not just about parking availability, it's also about getting people here by other modes. We want people to come visit our neighborhood.
Okay.
It speaks to the environment too, and to equitable means of transportation. I'm hitting all of your headlines here.
All of our move DC
Committee.
tenants, Commissioner.
Yes. Okay, so Commissioner Packus, I'm going to try and write down your thoughts. Be it further resolved, ANC3C urges DDOT to improve multimodal transportation options in for the Cleveland Park Business District, including extending the circulator access, including a stop.
Extending the circulator route up to Cleveland Park and servicing the zoo entrance.
We might have to wordsmith the.
Yeah, that's fine.
How about I just say up to Cleveland Park, and that way it's.
No, you want to put servicing the zoo, otherwise we're going to. I think that's like the real selling point of the extension of it.
In the
The
zoo.
Metro.
Okay, what else? Bicycle options.
Not our problem.
Well, having bikes at the bike share stations would be a good start.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's on the agenda later.
Yeah.
Getting more stations might even be more of a challenge, right?
Yeah. We first need bikes at the stations we have.
Yeah.
Okay. Increasing. Not increasing. Oh, well, not increasing the number of bicycles, but filling the number of bicycles, or
Ensuring the bike share stations remain, I don't know, not full, because you don't want them full because then nobody can arrive. It's optimally stocked.
okay, cool. We can think about that one too if there's other things we wanted to add there.
Yeah.
I imagine there'll be some feedbacks on us talking about buses and bicycles in a parking resolution. But yeah, the Commissioner Packus is absolutely right. Like, the more options we give people, the more parking we have too. So cool. Anything else in this? No? Would anyone from the community want to add anything? Wonderful. Thank you all. This is in such a better place. And I'm hoping that since we did this as a community and we did this with the other commissioners, that we are able to get this passed at our next meeting. And yeah. Sandra.
Swale, when do you want the map from me? This seems like it's pretty close to being done, huh?
So let's talk about that. So that was the next on the agenda. You meant the map for the loading, unloading, and doing that type of stuff?
I forget what I said. Was that yesterday?
Yeah. But which map are you talking about?
Oh, she, one of the people from DDOT had mentioned,
Mhm.
Lauren maybe had mentioned having a visual of where we thought it would be a good idea to put the PUDOs. Do you want that? Do we not want that?
So I think we can pass the resolution without that level of detail because it's just
Okay.
like saying this happens. But that was actually the next thing on the agenda. So this was the update on the meeting from DDOT. Everyone can see my screen, right? I'm on the agenda, back at the agenda again. And so we
Yes.
had a meeting we talked about last time at the committee that we're going to talk to DDOT about loading and engage with David Lipscomb, Laura Matten about loading issues. So Cassandra already started some of the feedback from that. Part of the feedback is we want to develop a problem statement for the loading issues and any sort of curbside management issues in our business district. And so part of that was sort of, the survey that Cassandra did, but also sort of creating a map where we think would be good options and where some issues are. But yeah, I just wanted to give everyone in the community back an update that this is something we said we would do. And the next steps are to write a problem statement about this, which I think is on mine and Cassandra and Commissioner Finley's to-do list, right?
I'm glad you included yourself there, Swale. Yes, it is on yours as well.
Of course. So the next step is submit a problem statement based on information collected and also include the photos that everyone has of the loading issues on Connecticut Avenue. One of the photos that Cassandra showed on her phone.
I took two. I took another one today of a loading truck blocking the northbound traffic lane next to a giant open empty parking spot. So maybe I won't show that one.
That sounds about right.
Okay, so we'll do this. I think we can come up with something in the next week or two, and I think once we have the resolution passed and we have a problem statement as well, then we're actually moving towards and getting towards resolving this thing. And then I guess Cassandra, if you wanted to add anything on the survey responses, or if you have useful information, not useful information, any information you found from the survey that was conducted.
Yeah, so I'm sure this won't come as a surprise to anyone, but delivery issues are a struggle for the businesses without parking. I would say the majority of businesses that get deliveries actually don't get giant trucks. They have medium-sized trucks or smaller vans that come more regularly. Some of the bigger businesses, obviously streets, and yes, they have the larger, like the giant ones. So far the drivers just sort of park wherever they can find parking. I'd say probably the biggest challenge are the food delivery drivers. A lot of the businesses have experimented on the east side with having them come in the back alley, but that's had challenges. One of the restaurants, a delivery driver stole something from the employees while they were picking up food. And so, while the restaurant owner understands that not all delivery drivers are bad people, they just don't want to even have that be a possibility anymore. So it's really pushing, it's bringing more of that traffic into Cleveland Park that is looking for parking. So the PUDOs would really be helpful with that. And then there's a lot, most businesses have Amazon and UPS packages. I'm about 60 to 65%, 70% of the way done with my gathering information. And so I will continue that and sort of give you a little tally when I'm done.
Thank you.
Is there a way, and I have no idea how utilized the spaces behind that strip for delivery drivers to pull up in that alley, like even these, I don't know if there's an app that can allow the restaurant to give them instruction to go to the back and like ring a doorbell. As opposed to like,
So, so the Spices is doing that successfully, but then, like I said, one of the other restaurants has tried it, and then when the delivery person came in, stole a motorcycle helmet from an employee. So they don't want to open that up to risk again. It just depends. And the alley is very wide until you get to around, definitely by Fat Pete's, it becomes almost a one lane. But before that, it's quite wide from Macomb. Christian and I walked it on Friday, but I forget the exact point that it narrows. So it's not like there's like if you've got cars going north and one comes south, you know, they can be stuck too. So I'm not sure what the option is with that. But you've also got all of that parking from the apartment complex that is, I mean, they have a huge parking lot. So I don't know if we could just like eminent domain, take some parking from them or.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, no. We
So-
definitely can't. So,
No. So it's hit or miss. That's a long way of saying it's hit or miss. And it really depends on each individual business. But I know like Bob's on the phone. He told me today that, was it Bob? No, I'm sorry. It wasn't Bob. It was the Vacuum Brothers Sew and Back. The customers now go to the rear and call them when they're there with the vacuum cleaners and they come and pick them up. So some people are starting to switch to the back.
They've got parking in the back of the vacuum and sewing store.
Right. And some of them do have parking, but
Hmm.
not everybody has parking. So.
okay. Thank you. And I think that'll go well in the problem statement too. So I think all that stuff we can collect and write on. Wonderful. So if everyone's okay, we'll move on to some issues that some community members brought up. And there'll be a chance for other community members to also bring up these once we talk through these. So one was sort of placement of scooters and sidewalks and ADA requirements and stuff like that. So instead of me describing this, I do see that Nicholas Smith is on the Zoom call. So Nicholas, please feel free to unmute yourself and describe to us the issue, and we can talk about it. If you want to. If you don't want to, I'm happy to describe it too.
Good evening. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this issue. It's something that, well, walking along Connecticut Avenue, I'm sure pretty much everybody has experienced at some point or another. It's either what I call marketing and promotional placement of scooters, which basically literally are perpendicular to the path on sidewalks, or the just random leaving of parking of scooters by users on the sidewalk. I'm not personally impaired, but I know people who either use walkers or wheelchairs or have other issues. They're otherwise engaged or whatever, dealing with the path and trying to get by. I've personally had times where I was dragging behind me a large load and found 5 scooters literally parked across the path with no way for me to go around them. This is, I think, not going to be an issue that gets that becomes less and less over time. I believe it's going to be an issue as DC allows the addition of scooters to the already large group that are out there. We're going to see that problem grow, and we're going to see people who are either impaired or elderly or fill in the blank trying to deal with this. Just as we have the bike racks, we need to have a situation where people know that they have to take a scooter from there and return it from there. I personally would rather see them in bike lanes and off of the sidewalks, but at this point, I'd just like to feel confident that the sidewalks are safe for everybody to use. The ADA requirements actually state that you cannot have impediments on a sidewalk. So there are already laws in place, and we need to be sure that these companies who seem to operate on the do something wrong and apologize later methodology will actually take some responsibility. I just on a side note, I know someone who whose son was working for one of the bicycle rental companies, and he has been let go along with several other people at the company because the companies have decided that during the pandemic, they don't need as many people servicing the bicycle racks. My guess is that the scooter companies probably feel much the same way. The area I recently encountered, the scooter situation was in the path on the east side of Connecticut Avenue, adjacent to the metro station. It's already pretty thin there as a sidewalk to begin with, but when you place 4 or 5 scooters on it sideways, getting past is an issue. That's a marketing ploy, I think. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak about it. I hope that it's something that that the ANC Commission can take the lead on and perhaps remind the council and the mayor's office that there are ADA compliant rules that we need to follow, and there needs to be some kind of method of seeing that they are done so. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Pagas, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you for your comments on that. Christian, I don't know if you can answer this or not. My understanding is that there's less bike share and scooter vendors than there were in the past. That the latest round of contract, they limited the number of companies it went to.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I believe there's 7 active companies across the district.
Yeah, and then there's a reporting mechanism to like tell these companies that there's an errant scooter too. I know that's kind of a pain in the butt.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a way to tell errant scooters, like if they're in an area that scooters aren't supposed to be, but this is like sort of talking about blocking ramps and stuff, which I don't think the app like kind of tells you. So I don't know, Christian, do you have any other insights on how DDOT handles this? Is DDOT handling it, and where would we as ANC go, and who would we talk to try and get a resolution?
Yeah, there are certain regions in the city, I believe the downtown area, where scooters are allowed to ride on the sidewalk, for example. But in other places in the district, they are required to follow bike laws and guidelines, being on bike lanes, making sure that they're parked legally. Thank you for the feedback. This is great. This is what I'm here for, is to hear these concerns and bring them back internally to our bike team and our scooter team that really want to make sure that people are aware that the education aspect of making sure that scooters are parked against light posts, away from the curb. We do have an educational video that was released back in 2019 about the proper ways, the do's and the don'ts of where to park, how to park. There are many scooter corrals across the district as well. I'm not familiar if there are any located across the Connecticut Avenue, for example, but I think that is one measure, Commissioner, that you could take, is to emphasize that if there needs to be more corrals in that particular location, that DDOT can look at those areas and see if those will be measures to curb some of those things. The bad thing is that takes away parking, and I know that's a big issue already in that particular location, but we are very multimodal. We take a lot of different ways of getting around into consideration. And so that's what DDOT has, and we really want to hone down that people understand some of those rules and regulations. And unfortunately, you're going to have the situations where residents are being neglectful, or they're running late somewhere, and they just they just don't have the moral compass at the time to do their diligence to move it around. But we want to make sure that they're emphasized and they're aware of the steps needed to take. And it's like bikers who don't wear helmets. We can't emphasize it. It's one of those things where it's a safety comfort, but we recommend it, strongly recommend it. So it's one of those issues where there's a fine line. But I definitely think, to your point, that the corrals and those actual infrastructure that can be put in could be good measures to mitigate some of those problems.
So just to clarify, you're saying that right now it's not really illegal to leave a scooter on an ADA ramp, for example, or perpendicular on a sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
It's not illegal at all. Like, it's just we just ask people not to do it.
Our policy team will verify that.
Okay.
The DCMR regulations, I believe it's section 18, talks about scooters and shared uses. The language should be in there. If not, I can verify with them if we've changed our stance about that. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll make sure to bring that back in-house as well.
Thank you. So I think that's probably the first step, right? Like, figuring out, like, is there an enforcement mechanism at all? Like, or is this just not even against the law? And then asking that from either council or DDOT. But I also appreciate the recommendation on corrals. Like, maybe that is what's needed, especially on places where we see these more often. And I don't know if it necessarily has to take up parking, because sometimes there's places where you could have sort of bike racks on the sidewalk if there's a larger extended sidewalk. So I want there's places in our neighborhood where we could identify that can be good.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Christian. I'll follow
Yeah, no
up.
problem.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. So the next two were and we're at 8:05. So let's see. So these are two things that I think we can there are two things that we can probably get email feedback on too, if people are okay. One is there's a chance to get more bike share stations in 3C. So just wanted to ask if anyone thought where we could have them, if we could have more, where would we have more in 3C? And then the other one is just to inform everyone that there's going to be yet another traffic safety assessment happening on Porter Street and Connecticut Avenue Northwest, which has happened forever and ever and ever, but yet another resident had submitted it, and so we're supporting it, and hopefully, like, we can find something else about this. But just to let everyone know, yeah.
Can you tell a little bit more about the request that was made for that? Because the streetscape project is going to substantially redesign that intersection.
So yes, and I think that is that it's about more signage and more other issues, and of course, like, I know the easy answer is always let streetscape sort of deal with it. My personal thing is I think we should keep talking about that intersection until it actually happens, and then when streetscape happens, like, make a point about how dangerous that intersection is. One of my constituents submitted it, and I supported that. But I also wanted people to know, because so many people have contacted me about the intersection and keep contacting me about it.
So I think that we made a request in 2017 or 2018, and it may have been informal, not through the full ANC, but of getting an extra no turn on red sign for the northbound on Connecticut traffic, because folks just like to turn right on red there, and there's no turn on red 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The other issue, obviously, is going eastbound, turning left, heading south when you're heading south on Connecticut, so you're going east on Porter. That setup is pretty dangerous for pedestrians, because folks they don't want to wait for another cycle, so they cut through.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Finley, I'll forward you the full thing, and you can look at it, because obviously you've been.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, you've been involved with this so much longer than I have. I unfortunately, like, I feel like this is going to move so slowly. Like, traffic safety assessment takes a number of days, then once that happens, then it's always just like, oh, streetscape's going to be done by then, which of course it won't. So, but I'll forward you that, Commissioner Finley. Bike shared stations in 3C. If anyone has any quick thoughts on sort of bike share stations in 3C where we might want to see one, or, you know,
This is something I think that Commissioners Hoyt and Boucher might want to chime in on, because I think their SMDs might be lacking in bike share stations, particularly Commissioner Boucher's.
yeah, yeah, I think you're right. Because yeah, I think my SMD is relatively good. Although on the Wisconsin Avenue side, maybe it can use a little bit more.
I mean, I know my neighbors, my friends and neighbors at Quebec House would love a bike share station on Quebec Street, but I don't know if we have the demand there for that.
Mine's always empty by the zoo.
It's not a good thing.
And there's only like one, and it's only like 20 bikes.
Yeah.
5 of which are probably broken, so, if they're there.
So, okay, so we can work on that one and see if we can put a request in. Any other issues that any community members might want to bring up, or any commissioners want to bring up before we adjourn? I don't have too many people left, which is perfectly fine.
I just do want to say one more thing, commissioners. There was a reason why I was quiet when you guys were doing the writing piece for the what do you call it, the reversible lanes. It's not my job to sway your decision. I don't want you to think that I'm just being a listening ear and trying to avoid giving you any tips. But we really want to make sure that because it's a study that we're taking community input, and the last thing I want to do is become that arbiter of suggestions thing, because it's up to you. We want to make sure that it's coming from directly from the commissioners and from the community as well. So just wanted to clarify if that was something lingering in everyone's head, but just wanted to make it clear.
No, thank you, Christian. I mean, it's we really appreciate you you coming here to our meetings, and you're a wonderful resource, but we also appreciate you clarifying. Jack E has said there needs to be a bike station in Porter, Connecticut. Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. So maybe we should just ask for all the bike share stations and just have them all. We can call ourselves the 3C of the bike share. Wonderful. Anything else before we adjourn? No. All right. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, community members.
You.
And we'll follow up.
Everyone,
Thanks
Great.
all. Have a great night.
Bye.
take care, everyone.